East Cleveland, everything is upside down. The cops rob the citizens, the mayor steals from the voters, and the buildings are too dangerous to live in. We went to learn the story of how politicians turned a prosperous suburb into America's fourth poorest city, and ended up learning that a myth is holding East Cleveland back. We originally planned to go to Cleveland, but a reader of ours DM'd us that the real story was in East Cleveland, an independent city right on the edge of Cleveland. So we went there instead, to find out why this city was so notorious and who was to blame. The blight began as soon as we entered the city limits. Abandoned buildings, potholed roads, empty storefronts. One of the only open businesses was a convenience store with locals gathered outside.
I've been here 23 years. I got here 2001. When I first got here, it was kind of like off the chain. Bad. I ain't gonna say bad because I ain't never experienced bad. So I don't know what bad is. But I know one thing, it was different. I would just say it's different.
Late 80s, early 90s, we had almost 1 million people in Cuyahoga County. We under 400,000. Wow. A lot of people buried, a lot of people went to jail, a lot of people got the hell out of here before they got buried.
I feel like nowadays, safety-wise, jobs-wise, opportunities.
You can get jobs here, you just gotta apply yourself. It's still livable, you could live, but you still gotta know the streets too. Because, you know, this being Cleveland get known for, oh, he buried over there in the field back there. As me growing up, I grew up in it, so I was a part of it. But, you know, we learn how to navigate throughout all that being around where we're from. It's just hard. I mean, if you actually go up under that bridge right there, you'll really get a shot of East Cleveland. You'd be like, oh my God.
Off camera here, one man told us that he had just had bodies dropped in his yard. Another group of people told me to get out, so we left and drove further into the city. A century ago, Cleveland was America's 5th largest city. Its richest people lived in East Cleveland, including John D. Rockefeller, who had his summer home here. His estate still overlooks the city. Jobs were in abundance. East Cleveland was the world headquarters of GE Lighting, while Cleveland had booming steel, oil, and auto industries, and it was just a quick train ride away. Today, all of that's gone. To learn more about what happened, we went to one of the city's largest apartment complexes, Forest Hill Terrace. On the way, we heard this on the main road.
That sounded like a gunshot, and then there's a girl screaming. What happened here?
Drugs, man. Drugs did this. Crack did this. Alcohol did this. Mental problems did this. We are really terrorizing ourselves with the things that we do, bro. Because it's not that black people don't get the same, nowadays, the same opportunities. So if you're getting the same opportunities, yet destruction follows you wherever you go, you have to look at yourself eventually. And I think that's the problem with my people. We don't look at ourselves, we look at everybody else. What I do use as an excuse, if you will, is the government not being fair to everybody. Now, if it's not being fair to everybody and we're third-class citizens, second-class citizens, pardon me, well, third class, because now that the immigrants, no disrespect to them, now that they're coming in, who you think gonna take their place? Who place you think they're gonna take?
Say a lot of white people would say, well, it's systemic racism, it's over-policing.
Bullshit. How is it over-policing? That's the problem. How is it over-policing when they don't have enough police to police the area? Now, I would say this, it's too many crooked cops. And when they arrest my friends, they take their shit, don't take them to jail, you know, or whoop their ass. It's shit like that going on. I mean, like, you know, I mean.
That happens out here?
Hell yeah. Hell fuck yeah.
In your lifetime, has it gotten a lot harder to find work?
No, because I'm educated. And I know when to turn the fire off and when to turn the fire on. I don't take my hood to my place of work. But I'm quite sure it's a lot of people that say, yeah, it's hard to find work, you know. This is the problem. Without education, see, my people don't know that the electoral vote puts the president in office. Vote for legislators, for judges, for sheriffs. That's what we vote, but we don't do that. We be in a frenzy about who finna vote for the president. Who gives a f? They still ain't gonna do nothing for you. Oh, I'm a Democrat. My daughter and I were just talking earlier. Dad, I'm a Democrat. I said, baby, Lincoln didn't free the slaves because he wanted to. He freed the slaves because he had to.
Originally used to was Czechoslovakia, now it's Czech Republic. But I escaped in 1980. There was communism over there, so, and I think in October somebody get shot here, so.
In one of these buildings?
Between the buildings, yeah.
Between the buildings.
Yeah, so still very dangerous people, drugs and all that shit.
How's Cleveland?
Yeah, you ask me, I'm gonna rate it from a 1 to 10. I'm gonna say about a 7.5.
It's pretty good.
Yeah. Say East Cleveland, I'd say probably about a 4.5.
Why that gap? 7.5 Cleveland,
Well,
4.5.
this suburb here is probably one of the worst in the country, in the United States. I've been living in there 12 years. 12 years, and I'm finna get out. This be my last winter. Murder cases and stuff like that, drugs, prostitution, so.
Now, if you're enjoying this video, please subscribe. Our mission is to capture the world as it really is without bias or fear. What we're doing in the Rust Belt, we'll soon be doing in California, Mexico, and Pakistan. No place is off limits for our reporting. Do not miss it. East Cleveland's plight is part Rust Belt story. Industry started to collapse in the 1960s and the jobs left. At first, East Cleveland seemed insulated. Its 40,000 people weren't factory workers. They were mostly white professionals. East Cleveland was just a prosperous suburb. But a deteriorating situation inside Cleveland led middle-class blacks to move to East Cleveland. As they did, the whites moved out, often rushing to offload their houses to lower-income blacks. As more industry left, businesses closed, and the middle-class blacks moved out. Soon, there was crack, gangs, and violence. Today, 40% of East Cleveland's people live in poverty, and the per capita income is $19,526, the fourth lowest of any city in America.
But this city need a whole lot. That's why Cleveland won't merge with it. They owe $50 million to victims of abuse right now through civil suits.
East Cleveland does.
East Cleveland owes...
Through police abuse?
Police brutality, lawsuits won.
Now, what this man is saying might sound shocking, but it's all true. In East Cleveland, the police are criminals themselves. Numerous officers have been convicted of stealing from people during traffic stops and other interactions. Then this summer, the police chief resigned after sharing memes using the N-word and other racial slurs. Last year, 11 officers were indicted for assault and obstruction of justice.
And this morning, almost half of the East Cleveland Police Department is off the job and facing charges.
And those 11 officers join another 5 officers that are going to be charged with criminal charges. The newly released body cam footage from the Cuyahoga County prosecutor office shows officers kicking suspects and shows a pattern of unlawful conduct multiple times. Charges against these officers include interfering with civil rights, tampering with evidence, obstructing justice, and theft in the office.
The policing situation got so bad this spring that the mayor begged Ohio's governor to send in the National Guard. 4 months later, that mayor was indicted for theft and corruption.
King's full list of charges include 2 counts of theft in office and 1 count of soliciting improper compensation.
I used to come to this
How
building.
long has it been vacant?
It's been vacant for about 12 years. And when they tore it down, they left it wide open for vandals to come in, and they raped the building. You see, ain't nothing, the windows or nothing.
Yeah.
And when they had the funds to tear it down, the mayor misused the funds. And the mayor right now is waiting on the 3-judge panel from the Supreme Court to rule that he gotta leave. With a felony, he's so stubborn with corruption, he don't even wanna just get off the bench. He was taking city funds and funding them to his family-owned business. That man's family, man, King family, man, they millionaires, man. They don't need this money.
The mayor of East Cleveland's family is millionaires.
You better believe it.
East Cleveland specifically is known as being one of the poorest cities in America. I'm wondering why you think that is.
The poorest city in America, that's from basically mismanagement. Mismanagement, man, caused all of this. To do something, but this city need a whole lot. That's why Cleveland won't merge with it.
The corruption helped put the city into a fiscal emergency in 1988. It's still in one today. The situation has gotten worse as the population has continued to collapse. In East Cleveland, corruption straddles party line.
Every mayor they put in there, you know, they're not the right type of mayor.
While it's mostly had Democratic leadership, it had a Republican mayor from 1998 until 2004. He was convicted for racketeering, extortion, mail fraud, and tax evasion. 4 years later, his son murdered his own mom for allegedly snitching on his dad, the mayor. Corruption has meant that places like this, the Huron Place apartments, have sat vacant for years, a criminal hideout and eyesore for the whole city.
To be perfectly honest, I hate to say it, but I don't know, when they get ready to go before that and inspect that building, ain't no telling how many bones they gonna have in there. It's an easy dumping spot. Think about it, wide open, don't nobody watch. Dumping spot. They've been dumping bodies in houses in East Cleveland. Come on.
This is a little bit spooky.
Yeah, but this is spooky, you know, but if you think this, somebody told me 20 years ago, it was one of the most prestige buildings in the Cleveland. You know, there was going disco downstairs and it was #1, and look.
Do you know what happened to it?
They start moving out and out and out, and they wanna replace the whole building, make it like new, and they start putting a new door and stuff like that before they finish it up, one part of it. somebody steal it. And so just overnight, I think, say hell with that and leave that like this, and that's
Wow.
Driving down the main road, we saw a sign, "Make East Cleveland Safe Again." We called the number and reached Art McKoy, an author, businessman, and anti-gun violence activist.
We're looking to talk to some people about the situation in East Cleveland.
Born and raised in East Cleveland, he had his own theory about what happened here, that everything was by design.
Watch how systematically this great city, this safe city, this prosperous city has been destroyed by bureaucrats.
Do you think East Cleveland is the worst it's ever been because it's an effort to drive out the
Yes,
black
sir.
residents?
Gentrification. That's the deep line. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And why do I know this? Because I've lived it. Gentrification process doesn't take place in a year, in 2 years, in 10 years. Sometimes it takes 40, 30, 40 years. We're in the hood. You say that, right? Cleveland Clinic, one of the greatest hospitals in the world. They're in the hood, but you wouldn't consider them in the hood. But when you ride through there, straight down Euclid, and when you hit that bridge, Lord have mercy, all of a sudden you're in the hood. Do you think that the powers to be are going to continue to let that part of the hood flourish, and as you come down Euclid, all of a sudden you run into potholes, crime, torn out buildings that look like Lebanon? It's a reason behind this. I guarantee you right now, if I stay in this shop long enough, I'll see white people and other ethnic background people walking through here. The shop will become a multicultural shop, as it's becoming now, with Africans and Asian and people, Mexican, people from all over. That's a part of the process. But before you can get to that process, and this is the sad part I hate about this, you gotta tear a city apart. We're at the 90th percentile of this happening.
Art and many others believe that the government introduced drugs like crack to accelerate the decline.
A lot of people think drugs were planted in black communities.
It's not a thought, this is real. I lived it. First couple years that the drugs came in, everything was beautiful. Everybody had money and they was driving their cars. But right after that, signifying thing that still rings in my memory, the young boys selling drugs and crack cocaine is all around and everybody flourishing. And then the winter came. And the next spring, when I came into the neighborhood, all those young guys that had those cars and were selling that drug, they had gone. They had vanished. I thought, where did they go? And then all of a sudden, I saw a new group of young men out in the street doing the same. That first wave of young men, they had got busted, went to prison or wherever. Then they brought another wave and another wave. And
when you say they brought, you think it's the government or something else?
Oh, absolutely, the government. And I'll tell you something. They tried to do it again with heroin. We said, stop. After the crack had died down, they brought the heroin in. If heroin come in behind crack, it's going to devastate our community and it will be the end of the black community. But guess what happened? Guess what happened, sir?
Started to devastate the white community?
God intervened. I'm not going to let you destroy those people like you did with crack. I'm going to spread it around.
Despite his politics, he had Kamala merch on the walls. Art wanted Trump to succeed.
I'm going to shock you with this. I'm a Kamala person, but since we have a new administration, President Trump, you say you like the young black guys and you like the way they supported you. You know they need help. They're the most struggling young black men. So we're going to ask you to help us come to East Cleveland and help us make East Cleveland safe again.
Almost proving Art's point, when we walked outside, there was a white guy jogging down East Cleveland's main street with his AirPods in. Now, the wildest part of this story. One of Cleveland's nicest suburbs, Brattonall, sits just next to East Cleveland. A highway splits them, and driving under it is like entering a different world. You go from abandoned blocks to gated estates right on Lake Erie.
It's hard to overstate the difference between East Cleveland, where we were, and Brattonall, where we are now.
While it was hard to find people to talk to here, we did interview one white woman on the street.
All right, so as you were driving through the really nice neighborhood here, Brattonall, we saw a lady walking on the street, pulled over, tried to talk to her. So I asked her if we could interview her for the video we're making, and she said, it's all in the history. I said, what do you mean? She said, well, it's all in the history books. And I said, yeah, but I'm curious about the way people here relate to the people over there. A highway divides you, and yet it's two totally different worlds. And she goes, don't you know what redlining is?
Redlining has long been the media's way to explain current failures in inner cities. It refers to the former government practice of marking areas as red, meaning high risk, and thereby preventing investment, setting them on the path to failure. This is often done to minority areas and has been linked with poverty today. But redlining ended in the 1960s. And back then, East Cleveland wasn't a poor minority area. It was a wealthy white suburb.
But to ignore the fact that this is a much bigger thing, these houses here, a lot of the houses in, for example, there's a Millionaire's Row here. It was built to house the management and the owners of these steel companies. And this same kind of thing here. You had a lot of big companies and executives who lived here, and the working class lived across the highway. But the thing is, when these places shut, these people were fine because they owned houses that looked like that, and those people lost everything.
What's happened since is a failure by all levels of government, a story of people using institutions to exploit people rather than help them. It's people like those in Bratenahl who have the money and influence to potentially change things, but it's simpler for them to blame the past, although that does nothing to solve the problems of today. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe. We post these videos twice every week.